been talking all week about that founding stone that's in the temple. This is the first thing that is laid in the temple. Of course, they found first the top of the hill. Whenever you build a temple, they do the top of a hill. And on the top of the hill, that's where God is. So they want to build a temple to honor that God. So the first thing they do is they dig down, way down to the water table, but what they would call it is the primordial water, the water of creation. And they'll fill that up with a special sand and stone, and then they'll lay a foundation for this, the founding stone. And it's usually made out of a totally different material than the rest of the temple. The founding stone is typically made out of granite. The rest of the temple is made out of sandstone. And this is the first thing you will see. So in a temple construction, you can look on the hill and see the founding stone. It's the first thing that you would see. And then from this, they measure the rest of the building. You have it all the way going down the hill into the holy place, into the courtyard, the outer enclosure wall, and then sometimes even into the neighborhood, the main gates that open up into the neighborhood that goes straight through. But what's interesting about this, that I believe that this stone is the same as the cornerstone in Scripture. This is the cornerstone in Scripture, I believe, that Jesus referred to in the first three Gospels when he said, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And when you start thinking about cornerstone being in the corner of a building, you kind of go, how does that work? How does that work? That the stone here that was rejected has become the cornerstone. It just doesn't work. Or many believe it's more like a capstone. It's like the very top, the peak. Those are the two options that I typically read. And I want to offer a third option, and that is of having the cornerstone in the center of the Holy of Holies. To me, that means so much more. If you understand that ancient construction did not start from the corner of a building and work their way into the building. Ancient construction started in the center on the top of the hill and worked their way out. So the first stone would have been this founding stone of ancient Egypt. Now, cornerstone in Hebrew is pinna eben, eben meaning stone. A lot of you have heard that word in Ebenezer, the stone of remembrance, right? Eben. Eben is used for a lot of different things, a lot of stones and a lot of rocks in the Bible. But the pinna eben is corner and stone, and it's just as easy to switch those into stone with corners, which is what this is. The reason it has to have corners is you are orienting the temple. You cannot orient a round stone, so you have to have a shaped stone or a stone with corners. And that's what the first evidence of this being the cornerstone. And then you look at how the cornerstone is used in the Bible. It's used over and over in the Bible in many passages. And in fact, the most used epithet for God in the Bible is God is my rock. He is my rock and my fortress, my sure deliverer. And stone and rock are used interchangeably in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. It's a way to say God by calling him the stone. So when Moses says their stone in these Egyptian temples is not like our stone, he's referring to God himself as the rock, as the stone in the center. So you have this in Job, you have it in Deuteronomy, and then you also have that the passage Jesus refers to is in Psalm 118, verse 22. And you kind of wonder where that idiom came from. The stone the builders rejected has become the corner. It's kind of a idiom that was used, and some believe it was that Psalm 118 was written when the people came back from captivity, and that they found the cornerstone of the original Solomon's temple, and they were able to put it back together again. That the stone that the builders rejected now has again become the cornerstone. Now, I think what makes the most sense to me is that one day of the year, when the priests could come into the Holy of Holies, it was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And the priest would come in, and the Ark of the Covenant was sitting on this stone, and the priest would take the blood of a spotless lamb and sprinkle it on the mercy seat, it was called. But you got to imagine the blood spilled onto the stone as well, and sprinkled the blood And doesn't that make so much more sense for Jesus to be our cornerstone in the center of the Holy of Holies with the Day of Atonement, as opposed to in the corner of a building somewhere that gave it foundational structure? Now, to add a little bit more evidence, you've all heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's one particular scroll called the Temple Scroll. And in that Temple Scroll, they talk about what the priests did in the temple when there was no Ark of the Covenant. Okay, they had the Holy of Holies, but there was no Ark of the Covenant. Remember, that disappeared after Rehoboam. Jeremiah talks about it a little bit in his, but he's talking about it more of a coming age when the Ark of the Covenant will come back again. So what did they do when there was no Ark of the Covenant and nothing to sprinkle the blood on? So the Temple Scroll says this is what they did. They went into the Holy of Holies and they sprinkled the blood on the Eben Shetiyah. Eben, stone of foundation. Shetiyah is foundation stone. So they went in and they sprinkled the blood on the foundation stone in the temple. Okay, so I believe, I'm trying to prove, I give you a third option for where the cornerstone is, in the center of the Holy of Holies. And this would have been the perfect picture of what it is in this temple. As we go up and further into the temple to meet God, we find him, Jesus, here as the Pinna Eben, the cornerstone, stone with corners, and the stone of our atonement.